Some indications that your problem is coming from your forearm. As I mentioned in the first video, this is the Feline's test, and if you do this and there's a sharp pain right there, that's a good indication that it's a forearm or tendon sheath problem, as opposed to coming from somewhere further up the line. It's possible that you can have problems in more than one place. That's called double crush. You can have multiple crush, like I mentioned in the dimmer switch analogy in the first video. Another indication that your problem is coming from your forearm is if you have a wrist splint. This is a wrist splint, and it should only be worn at night. You don't want to wear it during the day because it can cause either more muscle imbalance or different muscle imbalance, which has to be corrected later. But these are for sleeping. And if a wrist splint makes you able to sleep better at night, then you know your problem, at least that part of your problem, is coming from your forearm, because when the muscles in the front of the forearm are stronger, I'll take this off quick. When the muscles in the front of the forearm are tighter, they pull the carpal tunnel forward, and that makes less room in the carpal tunnel, which is why when you're sleeping, you often wake up with numb fingers if you have a problem there. If the wrist splint doesn't help diddly, then you know your problem is definitely coming from somewhere else. In the video on the forearm techniques, I'll show you how to loosen up the forearm, get rid of those places where your muscles are stuck in contraction or where you've got muscle fibers stuck together that is shortening those forearm muscles. You also want to work on the muscles in the back, because when the front muscles are over a period of time pulling those forward, that affects these muscles in the back too. And a number of people, because their grip is weaker, they try and strengthen it by squeezing tennis balls, and that makes the muscle imbalance even worse. In the second section, I show how to strengthen your hands, but you want to loosen the muscles first before you try any strengthening. Otherwise, you're kind of 2 steps forward and 1 step back type of thing. And I'll be showing techniques where you don't have to use your other hand. In fact, you don't even want to use your other hand, because that's probably overworked as well. And the thumb is a different animal than the fingers, because the fingers just do this, and that's all forearm muscle. If you're just spreading your fingers apart, well, that's muscles inside your hand. But the thumb, part of it's controlled by the forearm muscles on the thumb side, and there's this big muscle down here, and in the last 2 videos, in the core videos, I'll be talking about that, and in the second section I'll be talking about some thumb pain as well. But the one type of thumb pain I'll talk about is called the quervians, and if you grasp your thumb inside your palm and pull down, and it puts a sharp pain right there, that's called the quervians. And just like there's tendon sheaths in your fingers, the tendons that go through there moving the thumb, those can get inflamed. Same thing. So you want to loosen up the forearm muscles on the thumb side if you have that problem. In the second section, I've got a section on supplements that may help. And at the bottom of that, I mentioned 2 different supplements, glucosamine chondroitin, which is also good for carpal tunnel, not because of the fact that it helps with collagen, but because it also increases synovial fluid, and the synovial fluid is what you want to increase, and hyaluronic acid, which is probably even better for the synovial fluid uptake. But again, you don't want to work for long periods of time without breaks, because that causes problems. Another muscle in the forearm, which does not move the fingers, is called the pronator teres, and what that does is move your hand downward. And to feel that, place your thumb a couple inches above the crease of the elbow, on the flexor side, and as you turn your wrist, or you turn your forearm from palm up to palm down, palm up to palm down, you should feel that muscle turn. It's a diagonal muscle, and almost, if it's tight, it might feel like a bone. And that muscle can pinch on the median nerve when it's tight, and that very similarly mimics carpal tunnel. And as I mentioned in the first video, if this part here is not numb when your hands are numb, and I'm not talking pain at all, because thumb pain, I'm not talking pain in the muscle, I'm talking numbness. If that's not numb, your problem is coming from somewhere other than the carpal tunnel, because the median nerve splits before it enters the carpal tunnel, and part of it goes to this part and the rest goes to the other places I was showing you for carpal tunnel syndrome. So that's another indication. And the little two fingers, most cases that can be fixed with working on the forearm muscles as well. Sometimes it's coming from elsewhere. Another thing that causes it is called cubital tunnel, and the cubital tunnel is in the elbow, and if you bend your elbow as far as it'll bend and you hold it there and your little two fingers start getting numb, well, that's cubital tunnel, and I've got a section on that in the second section. But you want to work on your forearm muscles as well. So in the next video, I'll give you the techniques that you've been waiting for.